Welcome back to the pod. This is season 2, episode 3, MTP 2. Implement tasks that promote reasoning and problem solving.
Yeah.
Welcome back to episode 3 of our season 2 of the Cool Girls Guild podcast. I'm the head honcho of this one, and I'm doing MTP number 2, implement tasks that promote reasoning and problem solving, which I feel like is pretty self-explanatory, but I would like to get a little deeper into this MTP. I feel like this MTP aligns a lot with what we've been learning throughout classes that we've taken with the lovely Dr. King, because everything is inquiry-based learning. Like making sure that there's a question, that there's something behind what you're learning. And I feel like that really aligns with MTP number 2. According to our little master doc of information about all the MTPs, it says, effective teaching of mathematics engages students in solving and discussing tasks that promote mathematical reasoning and problem solving and allow multiple entry points and varied solution strategies. Oh, guys, you don't have to clap. Thank you. Oh my God, wow. Okay, I'm famous. So basically, making sure the tasks that you're giving students are going to challenge them, are going to make them think, are going to make them want to know more, and actually use the tools that they have in their toolbox. The second time I've used that phrase. And some research from this little document says, not all tasks promote the same opportunities for student thinking and learning. Student learning is greatest in classrooms where the tasks consistently encourage high-level student thinking and reasoning, and least in classrooms where the tasks are routinely procedural in nature. And tasks with high cognitive demands are the most difficult to implement well and are often transformed into less demanding tasks during. And that last one is especially true because I feel like a lot of times when you're a teacher and you give out an activity that you're like, oh, the kids are gonna love this, or the kids are really gonna connect with this, and then you see them sort of, you know, losing steam and like being like, oh, I don't get it, like I don't understand, like I don't know what I want to do, and you just feel like, oh, I need to tell them. But sometimes productive struggle, common theme throughout these MTPs.
Yep.
Allowing the students to engage.
While you figure it out, I just want to add that with the implementing tasks, I think that when you give out tasks to children, you have to be aware that not every kid can do those specific tasks, that they all learn very differently, and that you have to since you're going to be learning differently, they're not going to get out what you want them to get out of. Does that make sense?
Yep. That also kind of connects to the goals. You want to establish your goals and then connect the tasks to those goals in order to support reasoning for your students and for them to fully understand and gain that knowledge that you really want them to understand.
With doling out these higher level cognitive thinking tasks, you have to make sure for these to be like truly effective, that students actually have the tools to solve problems. And I feel like it kind of like works with each other. Like if your students were consistently given lower level cognitive tasks like throughout the grades prior, they may not remember, because an example of a low level demand sort of task is tasks based on memorization. Because oftentimes students are going to memorize something for a test or for an assignment and then they'll immediately lose it. And I know that has happened to me many times throughout my entire academic career. So I know that is all too true. So ensuring that you know where students are at is going to be a really big part in implementing higher order thinking through these tasks. And another thing to keep in mind, kind of like what Jen Ann added with her cute little tidbit, is a high level task is not always going to be a high level task. What is difficult and actually has the students engage in productive struggle and engage with the lesson and actually get them thinking isn't going to at the end of the year. So like you have to make sure that you are constantly checking what you're doing, constantly changing what you're teaching. And anyone have any comments?
And I just think that also with that when it comes to like promoting tasks and problem solving, that's where the teacher has to be very creative, because you have to figure out so many different ways of like implementing tasks, because you have like so many kids that come back that have like so many backgrounds, that have so many, might have like different disabilities, for example, or like it's just maybe it could be overwhelming for the teacher. So that's why you have to like be able to plan, because if you cannot plan and cannot be very organized in those stuff, the class isn't going to go the way you want to, and kids are not going to be able to do those problem solving skills and apply them to anything that you want them to do.
And when you're like in that kind of situation where you have a whole bunch of kids that are like with different types of levels of like their academics, I feel like it's smart to have like different level problems. Like, oh, like this is what I did for my pre-prac. I said like, I'm gonna give you guys some trick questions at the end, and I want to see if you guys can solve it, but like don't feel any pressure if you can't, to like challenge those students that are like above than the whole, not above than the whole class, but they have like they know the content a lot more easier, to give them kind of more of like a way to branch out and kind of support their own reasoning, like figure it out themselves.
And I think that some teachers get very frustrated and get like really kind of not, I don't want to say mad, but maybe disappointed that the kids are not doing it the way that they want to do it. And then the kids are also kind of like pushed back, because they're like, oh, like I'm trying to like show her like this is exactly how I'm able to do whatever and whatever, and the teacher's like, no, this is the way that we're supposed to be doing it. But as a teacher, you have to keep in mind, like when you're giving out these tasks, like kids are going to do it very differently, are going to come up with so many different strategies, and there's so many that do not understand or don't get it, especially from people who come from different like foreign countries, because they learn very differently. Their problem solving skills are also very different, and I think that it's important for the teachers to be able to like make sure, like keep that in their own heads.
Yeah.
What great thoughts, guys. This has inspired me to go in to talk about some applications of MTP number 2. And I wanted to do so, okay, when I was researching this MTP, I was like actively looking for other sources, so I wasn't just using the problems presented in our document, but I kind of liked the example that was provided, or the examples that were provided in the document. And one of them is, so it's comparing 2 tasks, and one task is basically about comparing phone plans. It's like one plan has a basic fee of $30 per month and 10 cents per text message, and plan B is a basic fee of $50 per month and 5 cents per text message. And the question is, like, what has to be solved is, how many text messages would you need to send per month for plan B to be the better option, and explain your decision. So that is a high-level task, because no specific pathway of solving is suggested or implied. There are several different approaches that you can use to solve it, and there's effort required to not only determine your course of action to solving it, but also to justify your reasoning. And the fact that it explicitly is like, explain, like that gets the gears turning. And an example of a low-level task is, it was literally just equations. Like it was like an algebraic sort of equation, find x, find y, and there's like 3 examples. And that is a low-level task because students are expected to use a specific method to solve, and there's little to no ambiguity with that. Like, there's really not much more you can do than, you know, the basic algebraic expressions. So you have to...
I have something.
Okay.
I'm not sure if this is necessarily changing something to a higher level task, but in going, also I'm referencing my math lesson number 2 again, but they were doing number bonds, and you know how sometimes number bonds are vertical and sometimes they're horizontal, so they were only used to the horizontal ones, and I didn't know.
Is that the one with like the circle and
it's
like
going it's going like this, like they were used to these ones.
Oh really?
But I was used to the ones going vertically, so that's how I kind of did it with them.
That's how my students do it.
So, but they were introduced with it horizontally.
Oh.
But I came in with a number bonds lesson and it was vertically. And would that be, because I pulled it up and they were all like, oh, like that doesn't look like the one that we normally use. And then I was like, okay, but how can we make it connect to the one that you're used to? Would that be kind of like...
Yeah, I'd say so, just because it's something the students already know, but they don't know they already know it.
Yeah.
And like that's what, productive struggle. That's why it's important for those students to just look at the two examples of number bonds and try to figure out how to connect it in their brains that they're the same representation. And like, that's true with all symbols. Like when we talked last week or maybe the week before about like fractions and ratios and stuff, like different representations, like the colon and the x over y and the division sign, like they all mean the same thing, but because they're taught separately, students can't connect them. But like introducing that to them young and like right after they've already learned the other one, I feel is
and honestly, it wasn't intentional. It honestly was not intentional.
Well, sometimes that happens.
But it just kind of like, as you were saying that, I was like, oh, maybe that could be an example. But I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
No, I feel like doing that would really ensure to make sure the kids actually understand what the content that they're learning is. Like doing that will make them actually know, okay, like I know what I'm doing because I know how to do that independently. You know,
because eventually they were able to do it.
Yeah.
When I was like, okay, so instead of having it be on the right side, it's on the top. That's where we put our total. Yeah.
So, but did you tell them the answer?
Well, they
or did you have them like look at it?
They like pointed out to me that it's different than what they were used to when they were in centers, and some of the students had already started to do it. So I think I don't know. I think I helped like one student, the one who asked me, and then all the other kids at the table were already doing it the other way.
It's like it's hard for students that really can't like picture it differently, because students in my pre-prep that are also in kindergarten, we do the same thing where we'll flip the number bond from being vertical to horizontal, so that the like thing connecting it is like horizontal, and the students will write the answer like in the top one rather than the one that's like to the right. I don't know if I'm making any sense because Dr. King can't see the picture, but it's like, I don't know, I feel like that really makes them understand, like, okay, I know where this is supposed to go.
Yeah.
You know.
Another way it's from this same lesson. They were doing number bonds, and then they were writing number sentences, which is like adding a plus sign and an equal sign.
Yeah.
And I would be like, okay, look at your number bond and make a number sentence. And no, like, templates or anything. I was just like, make a number sentence.
So would that be high level or low level?
I think
with just presenting it to them in the way that they didn't know.
Yeah, like I had on the PowerPoint, I had a number bond, 5, 3, and 2, and I was like, make a number sentence from this number bond. Is that considered high level?
I don't.
That's tricky.
So, because it's just there's only one way you can do it.
Okay.
Yeah. But there's no alternative ways to do that. There's only one way for them to write the number sentence. So there's little to no ambiguity with the problem. So I would not call that.
But I understand why, because you give them so much like freedom to like think of their own answer.
Yeah, I feel like it might be different, especially because you have kindergarten. Like I only really have experience with like third grade. Like I've been with that the most. So like
I feel like it might be high level for kindergarten, because I don't know.
Yeah, because like what other ways? There's only so many ways you can do addition. Like obviously there's different ways that you can represent addition as a teacher giving problems. So maybe I don't know. Okay.
But sorry, just going from what Lila was saying. I know that with me as a kid, like it was difficult because like my dad would teach me a good, like a nice way, like his way, and then I go into the classroom. My teacher would get frustrated with me and be like, Janan, like I am not trying to yell at you, but we're doing it this way. The worksheet says it this way, and you have to learn this way because it's going to be on the MCAS, and you have to follow like that, or blah blah blah. I'm like, I know, but like I can do it because like my dad's someone who helps me with my homework, and he knows how to explain it with me, and he understands me, he knows how I think more than my teacher. Because first of all, my teacher never really like had that connection with me. Really, she never really liked me. But so that's why like I wasn't able to like try to learn it her way. So like the way that she would, for her, I think it was difficult to promote like doing all these like different tasks for me, because she has to figure out ways for me to like learn, be able to like do stuff. But like it was just difficult for me to do it her way.
Yeah.
And I get frustrated.
She was giving you a task that had low cognitive demand. Because if you're a teacher who's trying to promote reasoning and problem solving through tasks that are making students think, you should welcome them to use any method that they know how to solve it. And not only that, but share it with each other, which ties us into Miss Brooks. And I would like to talk a little bit about how Miss Brooks exhibited MTP number 2. Okay. Her half of a whole lesson promoted this MTP because the students are engaging in productive struggle. Third mention of productive struggle on this one podcast. Woohoo! But she kind of implied a different way to solve things and walked away. And I think this is the same example from last episode, which shows that but that's just like how I guess easy it is to like implement these MTPs. Like if you know them well enough and you know what the kids need to actually meaningfully engage with the content, then yeah, a task can have multiple meanings to it. But having the students explain it to each other and think about it out loud to each other allowed them to problem solve, think of other methods, or learn other methods, and they were independently responsible for their own and each other's learning with that, which is also a really big part of problem solving. Is if you're given the step, as explained before, if you're given the steps, if you're told explicitly how to do something, there's no thinking in that. So having that time alone and or with your peers who are on similar levels to you, trying to think about things, you're independent and you're actively problem solving. You're actually doing some high level thinking.
Almost like leading it a little bit because you know exactly how to approach different ways and different strategies.
Yeah, like obviously a teacher's gonna have to like facilitate all
Right,
of that, especially
yeah.
the lower you go. But like most independent for school kids. Are there any final comments from my lovely ladies?
No, not for me.
Okay.
Pretty well.
Then I think that wraps up episode 3 of season 2 of the Cool Girls Guild podcast. Thank you for tuning in.
Bye.
Bye. The credits for today's episode of the Cool Girls Guild podcast is the MTP analysis template, the Principles to Actions document, and Miss Brooks' lesson.